Soviet Russia, like how bad Russia is in terms of cracking down on thought police and
which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence.
The United Kingdom, home of Big Ben, fish and chips, and thought police. In a twist that would make George Orwell turn in his grave, the UK is now arresting more people for offensive speech than some authoritarian regimes.
And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material.
Join us as we unpack Joe Rogan's mind-blowing podcast on the collapse of free speech in Britain. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll probably think twice before tweeting that spicy political meme.
And here's the problem with that. Even if you say, yeah, well, people shouldn't tweet hateful things. I agree. They shouldn't. But who's to decide what is a hateful thing?
That's the problem.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Picture this. You're scrolling through Twitter, sipping your afternoon tea, when you come across a meme poking fun at the government. You chuckle, hit retweet, and think nothing of it. But in today's United Kingdom, that simple act could land you in hot water with the law. It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel, doesn't it? Well, welcome to the new reality of the UK, where the line between free speech and criminal offence is becoming increasingly blurred. The transformation of the UK from a bastion of free speech to a place where thoughts are policed is nothing short of alarming. In 2024 alone, a staggering 3,939 arrests were made by 29 UK police forces for offences under Section 127 of the Communications Act.
Which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence.
This law, originally intended to prevent harassment via electronic communications, has now become a tool for silencing dissent and controlling public discourse. But here's the kicker. While the government is busy arresting people for their tweets, the country is grappling with rising violent crime rates. It's a bizarre prioritization that has left many scratching their heads. Are we really living in a society where actual criminals are being released early, while law-abiding citizens face arrest for their words? The vagueness of current UK speech laws, such as the Public Order Act and the Communications Act, is creating a chilling effect on free expression. People are becoming increasingly hesitant to voice their opinions, fearing that they might inadvertently cross an invisible line and end up in handcuffs. It's a situation that's drawing comparisons to authoritarian regimes, with none other than Joe Rogan weighing in on the matter. Rogan, known for his candid commentary, didn't mince words when he likened the current state of the UK to Soviet Russia.
Where they've said things online that people find to be a hateful thing or a problematic thing. And I think it's only 200 in Russia.
He painted a picture of a nation where citizens live in constant fear of expressing their thoughts, always looking over their shoulders, wondering if Big Brother is watching. It's a stark comparison that should give us all pause. But let's be clear. These arrests for online speech are not isolated incidents. They represent a broader trend of increasing government control over personal expression. It's a slippery slope that raises serious questions about the future of free speech in the UK. How far will this go? What's next on the chopping block? Will we soon see people arrested for their private conversations or thoughts?
Finding people who've said something that they disagree with and putting them in a cage in England in 2024 is really wild.
The situation becomes even more perplexing when you consider that the UK government appears to be prioritizing speech policing over addressing real crime.
I think there's something like 4,000 people have been arrested in England for thought crimes.
It's a strategy that not only threatens individual liberties, but also diverts resources from tackling more pressing issues facing the nation. Remember when the UK was synonymous with freedom and democracy? Those days seem to be fading fast. What's causing other nations to view Britain not as a shining example, but as a cautionary tale? The answer might shock you, and it's causing ripples far beyond the British Isles.
Just terrible government overreach. You're seeing it now in England where people are getting arrested for tweets.
For centuries, the United Kingdom stood as a beacon of liberty, championing individual rights and freedoms. From the Magna Carta to the birthplace of parliamentary democracy, Britain's historical legacy in protecting civil liberties was unparalleled. But now, that hard-earned reputation is crumbling faster than a soggy biscuit in a cup of tea. International figures are raising eyebrows and voicing concerns over the UK's approach to free speech. It's not just a few disgruntled critics. We're talking about a chorus of disapproval that's growing louder by the day. Human rights organizations are sounding the alarm, highlighting an alarming trend of policing speech in the UK. They're not mincing words either, emphasizing that the government's obsession with controlling opinions is distracting from real crime and societal issues.
The offence of incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting.
But it's not just about hurt feelings and stern letters. The UK's soft power, that intangible influence that once made Britain a global trendsetter, is taking a nosedive. Critics argue that the country's increasingly restrictive speech laws are undermining its historical reputation for protecting individual rights and freedoms. It's like watching a former heavyweight champion struggle to lift a pint glass. And here's where it gets really interesting. Tech companies, those drivers of innovation and economic growth, are starting to get cold feet about their operations in the UK. Some are expressing concerns that the increasingly stringent speech laws could stifle innovation and create an unfriendly business environment. It's as if the UK is telling the tech world, thanks, but no thanks to future investments and job creation.
Yeah.
That says a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe in Russia they're too scared to do it at all.
Could be. Yeah.
The growing international criticism of the UK's speech laws isn't just fodder for late-night comedians. There are serious discussions about the potential long-term impacts on Britain's global standing.
Soviet Russia, like how bad Russia is in terms of cracking down on thought police. And
The fear is that continued repression of free speech could result in further isolation on the world stage. It's like watching a popular kid in school slowly turn into the one no one wants to sit with at lunch. The erosion of free speech in the UK isn't just a local issue. It's a stark warning for democracies worldwide. As Joe Rogan astutely observed, the UK's trajectory eerily mirrors that of authoritarian regimes, where governments wield control over citizens' speech.
So it's a really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are.
This comparison should send shivers down the spines of freedom-loving people everywhere. Historians and political scientists aren't mincing words. When governments prioritize speech control over addressing real societal problems, democracy itself begins to crumble. It's a slippery slope that starts with a few well-intentioned laws and ends with a populace living in fear of expressing their thoughts.
You know that a situation has gotten out of control when it becomes discussed globally simultaneously. The riots and public disturbances are...
The question now is, who will be brave enough to stand up and defend our right to speak freely? As pressure mounts on governments to crack down on offensive speech, we must remember that the cornerstone of democracy isn't comfort. It's the freedom to challenge, to debate, and yes, sometimes to offend. The UK's struggle isn't just about tweets and social media posts. It's about the very essence of what it means to live in a free society.